Next question brings us back in time to COVID. What lessons can we learn from our response to COVID and the impact that it had on the economy? So, Erica, we'll start with you.
The biggest lesson we learned from the economy is don't shut down, or from COVID is do not shut down the economy. This notion that was floated that you can just stop working and you can just shut down whole sectors of the economy and it won't have an effect. It was outlandish when it was proposed back then, and many folks like myself in the accounting, finance, and business realm said that this was going to be a huge problem. Not only have we seen workforce shortages for all of my clients, again, whether it's an architect, a therapist, or a manufacturing company, they're all having workforce shortages. They are all having supply chain shortages and inflation prices. So if we're trying to build a new building, it's costing 3 times as much because the materials aren't being made. And so I think more important than anything is that the Federal Reserve, the federal government and the Federal Reserve should not be trusted with the ability to decide whether or not your job is essential, whether you are essential, whether your industry deserves to exist or not. We really need to shrink the size of the federal government so that it does not have the ability to destroy the value of your savings, the value of your business. They should not have the ability to shut you down and shut other businesses down. That is invariably going to have a ripple effect. And I believe the last time I looked, and this was last year, I think it was something like 25% of Vermont small businesses closed during the pandemic. And that is a shocking number when the majority of our businesses and the majority of our employees work for small businesses.
All right, same question to you, Anya. What lessons can we learn from our response to COVID and the impact that it had on the economy?
I think first and foremost, we learned that when we trust government to control our lives, they love to control us more than we ever dreamed possible. And that's very important to remember. We need to always maintain our independence, and we always need to have the people's voice be heard and respected in our country. I think one of the biggest things that we realized was that we were not independent enough in our supply chain. We are struggling very hard to recover from that. And by that I mean through agriculture, having our own food sources, and not just centralized food sources. We need to have them dispersed evenly around the country. Energy independence, and we also need to realize that those supply chain issues are continuing today, but they drove a lot of the inflation problems that we have today. Lumber was up 40%, almost 40%. All of these things happened, which contributed to the increase in cost of housing, having to truck food from further and further away, increase the cost of food, gasoline prices going up, all of these things. It's something that I was very passionate about in 2018 when I ran. We need to be ag independent, we need to be energy independent, and we need to be medical supplies independent. We should be manufacturing our own medical supplies. We were purchasing masks from China when this started, and China stockpiled everything they needed and left the rest of the world just without. So it's very important. I think we also need to look at COVID, not just from an economic standpoint, but from a national security standpoint, that countries that are enemies of the United States saw this. They saw how it shut down our economy. They saw how effective it was. And we need to make sure that we have our stockpiles ready, that we're doing the research necessary, and that we're doing the intelligence work necessary through the government to make sure that we aren't subjected to this type of thing in the future.